Hey guys, I'm Matt Hernandez. Welcome back to Framed Up. I've already showed you my setup for shooting composites on a black background. Today I'm going to jump into Photoshop and show you how I edit those images, how I cut them out, and get as much detail as possible around the edges. Okay, so now we're in Photoshop. I've shown you the setup of how I shoot a subject on black when I'm shooting for a composite. So now I'm going to show you the Photoshop portion of it. This is the out-of-camera image, and it is color corrected and color graded in Capture One. There's no retouching done. And then this is the senior banner that I created for this player. So sometimes I'll shoot banners on the existing background, like with a stadium behind them or whatever, or clouds. This one in particular, we were going for a Stranger Things twist, so this is my take on it. I wanted it to emulate their artwork for season 5, so that's what the background's about, and the sparks in the front and all that. This is actually lightning I shot during a lightning storm a few months ago. It was pretty cool. There was tons of it. I could have stayed there for about an hour, but anyway, you never know when that kind of stuff's going to be useful, and that's a good tip too. I think it was midnight, and the storm woke me up, and it would have been easy to go back to bed, but I thought, you may not have this chance again, so I went to the office, got my camera, and went out and shot for a little while, and it came in handy, especially for these banners. So, and I'm pretty sure I'll be able to use the lightning images down the road too. But anyway, so the point of this is to show you the reason I shoot on black, and which is to get a lot of detail around the edges of my cutout. There's lots of different ways to do cutouts. You can do the subject selection tool, object selection tool in Photoshop. You can use the pen tool, which I prefer to use those two in conjunction with each other. But then when you add this little technique in, then it really helps sell the composite, because when you zoom in here, you can see all the detail, all these flyaway hairs, and then even the jersey detail, like the little frays of fabric that are down here. That is very hard to get if you've got a muddy background or the wrong color background. So you have to shoot it the right way, and there's a reason why I use black. You need a contrast between the subject and the background. So if like somebody has black hair or a black uniform, like down here, his arms are a little bit darker in the shadows, and his hair is obviously black. So I edge lit it because of that, because you want that sharp contrast between the light and then the background, so Photoshop can easily determine the difference and cut it out. So you can do the quick selection tool, or you can do it like I do, which I'll sometimes do that, but a lot of times I'll send my cutouts to a place called Clipping Path Sector, which is a third-party company. They're super cheap. I don't know exactly how much the cutouts cost me. I think it's somewhere between $1 and $3 a piece maybe, but it's really cheap and it saves a lot of time. I can do a cutout with the pen tool in about probably 20 minutes, 15 minutes. So that's going to save me that much time per cutout if I send them off. And yes, you have to pay for it, but the reward for that is a lot of time saved. So it does cost a little bit of money, but to me it's worth it. So this is the file that I sent to them and got back. You can look over here in my layers, and you see that I've got a masked cutout on top and then the solid background on the back. Below that. So if you press Option and click on a mask in Photoshop, you can see the mask. So we'll zoom in. So they did a really good job with the hair, and that's because of the way that I shot it, because of that edge light contrasting with the black background. So that was easy for them to get some flyaway hairs there, but you can see the rest of it is more than likely, I think they probably used the pen tool here, because that's a pretty smooth cutout, which is fine, and a lot of people would be fine with this, and that's okay. It's just a little bit of an extra step, a little bit extra work to get a little bit more detail and really sell it over the top, which I like to make my cutouts as good as possible, because I just like attention to detail like that. So so there's something to be said for spending too much time on it too. You want to be cautious of that, but I want it to look as good as possible, and this technique really doesn't take that long if it's shot the right way. So okay, so I sent it to Clipping Path Sector. They sent it back like this is a Photoshop file. The way that you could do it, like I said earlier, with the subject selection tool, I'll show you real quick. If you select that, and a lot of you are going to know how to do this already, but get your quick selection tool over here. W is the shortcut for that, and then go up here to Subject Select and just click that, and you can see it did a really nice job. So some of these darker parts in here it didn't do quite as good of a job. So let's press Command D to deselect. So the way that I'm going to fix that is I'm going to duplicate my background layer by pressing Command J. And then I'm going to go to my adjustments in my layers palette and hit the curves button. And then I'm going to drag this, click on this curves right here, this curve, and drag it up like that, okay? So now I'm going to, you can see it brightened up. If I press Command 0, it will zoom out. You can see the whole image now again. You can see my light up here, and you know the differences in the black. So you can see that it's not totally black yet. We're going to fix that because it has to be totally black for this to work. So I don't want it to be that bright, obviously, but I do want the selection. I want this to help the selection. That's the point of me brightening it up. And if I drag down a little bit, then it's going to make the darker parts brighter, which is really what I want anyway. So there we go. I want Photoshop to be able to tell the difference in the subject and the background. Okay, now, if I go to my layers and I press Option, this little arrow and box come up, and it is going to clip this curves layer only to that layer below it. Now, I duplicated that background layer, the layer 0, so that I have a backup here. So I'm not going to use this. This layer, I'm going to use it for the cutout, and then I'm going to delete it. So I'm going to press Command, select both layers, and then press Command E to flatten that. Now, I'm going to zoom back out, press W again for my quick selection tool, and do select subject one more time. I'm going to press Z for my zoom tool and zoom in. So now you see like it missed his finger here, and I think some of his arm underneath. So now that we've brightened it up, it's doing a lot better job of actually getting everything, even the darker areas. This little part right here, it didn't differentiate, so I'm going to select my quick selection tool. I've got the plus option selected to add to it, so I'm going to hold Option, and you can see the minus pop up there, so I'm going to take that away. And then draw that back in. Okay, now I'm just going to zoom out real quick and just make sure that we're... Okay, so it looks like it did a really good job there. I'm going to press Option Command R, or you can go up here to select a mask. It's going to bring up your dialog box to refine the selection, and I've got my refine edge brush here, and I'm going to go in and oops, I did not mean to do that. That didn't do anything though. I just hit the background there. I'm going to go into this area here and paint over that, so it will refine that, and then maybe here, and like right here, maybe up here a little bit. So you can spend a little bit more time than that if you want to make sure it's like right there. I'd probably draw back in right here. We just got the brush tool real quick. I can draw in on my selection and just fix the parts that it didn't get. Go in on his elbow. Okay, so I don't want to spend too much time on this because I've already got my cutout done. I just wanted to show you real quick how you can do this easily with the quick selection tool because of the way we shot it. So the output, I've got my smart radius selected. Oh, I didn't have it selected actually. Okay, now I do. I would probably put my radius to, I don't know, between 2 and 4 right here. I've got my feather turned up a little bit, smoothing, and then my shift edge. So you don't want any of the background contaminating this. So I've got it to -21. I usually use between -10 and 30. And then I've got my output set to new layer with layer mask and hit OK. Okay, and so now, which I could have just done layer mask, that's okay. So now what we're gonna do is duplicate this layer again, and then grab that mask and put it on the background layer that's not too bright. And then I'm gonna delete both those. So then you've got your cutout and your background layer. But like I said, clipping path sector sent me back one already, so I'm gonna delete that. I was just showing you how to do it yourself. So, okay, so we've got our 2 layers now. We've got one intact, one masked. So let's go back over to our banner here. I'm gonna turn off the cutout layer. So now we've just got the design. So I'm gonna make a new group here and just pretend like that's not there. I'm gonna label it cutout. I'm gonna go back over to this tab, and I'm gonna grab both layers, press the move tool, which is V, select the move tool, and then drag it to this tab, drop it in. Okay, so now the black background's obviously intact, which is not, you know, we're gonna get rid of that. So the way that I do that, and the reason that I shoot on black is because, well, first of all, actually, before I show you the trick, Let's turn off the cutout. You need this background layer to be totally 100% black. And you saw when I used that curves layer to brighten it up that there are spots that weren't 100% black. There were parts that were darker than others. So the way that you can tell that, or the way that I do it, the easy way is to go down to your adjustments, select threshold, and make sure it's on the top. And then if you go up here to your properties box, so everything that's white is not black, obviously. Everything that's black should be. I'm gonna turn off this top group here with my design. So I'm gonna grab this little caret and mouse to the left. So you can see that everything is brightening up. So now you can see the black background, whichever part gets brighter first is the brightest part. So this part here is probably 100% black, and then most of it, and down here is, because it's darker down there because the light wasn't hitting it. So here is the brightest part. That's what you wanna know right there. So I'm gonna click back on the background layer. I'm gonna go to my adjustments and select the curves adjustment layer. I'm gonna clip it by holding Option, just like I did before. Clip it to that layer, and then you're gonna select your black eyedropper tool in the properties box, and then go to your brightest spot, which is gonna be around here or down here. Click that. Now you can see that's the black, that's making the black point. So everything should be totally black now, except for these little specks. I'm not worried about those. Okay, now we can get rid of threshold. So drag it to the trash, our layers. Now, so you can see there's the background's moved over to the side, so you can see the background there, the clouds, but we're gonna get rid of those. So if you go up here to your blending modes and your layers and you select screen, what screen does is it gets rid of everything that's 100% black, makes it invisible, and then makes everything that's darker semi-transparent, and then everything that's brighter is gonna show up, so that's why you can see his jersey really well. But you can see the darker areas, like below his arm here, that part is all going away because it was the darkest part of the image, and the black background, which we just made 100% black, is now disappearing. Now, if you take this curves layer off, if you turn that off real quick, you can see the difference in the background. It's making the sky brighter. The clouds that are the background for the banner, it's making them brighter and showing you where the background is, because it's not 100% black, which is why we added that curves layer in to alleviate that. So. And you can see the edge here. So what I would probably do is zoom out by pressing Command minus. I'm gonna mask this, and then I'm gonna select my gradient tool, and I'm gonna make sure white is my foreground color. So where I click and to drag the gradient is gonna be 100%, and where I end up is gonna be 0, because black is my background. And if it's not, those aren't your colors, you can hit, if you've got gray in here for some reason, you can hit D for default. So I've got my mode set to multiply, and so what I'm gonna do is click on the edge of the image where the edge of his elbow is, and just drag right before the edge of the background to fade that mask. So if I Option click on it, you can see that I faded the mask. So now that part that was showing up on the edge there is going to disappear because I masked it. I can do the same thing up here if I want to, because you don't need that area or here. And then you can fade the bottom if you want to. In this situation, it's not going to hurt to. Just fade the corners a little bit, just because we don't need that information. There's no reason for it to be there. So now, turn my curves back on. So now we're good. We can't see the edges. Okay, then, so the cutout on top, because you can see through him, and that's because the screen adjustment layer is making only the black parts disappear. Everything else is visible, but not 100% visible, depending on how dark it is. So let's turn on the cutout, and then now we have them in conjunction with each other. So you can see the screen layer, because the whole image is intact, everything that's lit, and you can see the flyaways and the edge of the jersey and everything like that. Problem is the main part of the image is not, it's too bright, obviously, because of the blending mode. So then you turn the cutout on top, and now the two together make pretty much a perfect cutout. So that is it. That's my trick for perfect cutouts, to show detail around the edges using screen blending mode and shooting on black for composites. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to comment and ask me questions if you want. Also be sure to share it. Subscribe to my page. We'll have a lot more videos like this, shooting and Photoshop both, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching.